Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to our virtual meeting by electronic participation for the Township of Puslinch on April 8th, 2020. And I'll call this meeting to order, and I'll start with our roll call. So, Councillor Goyda.
Present.
Councillor Spoulos.
Present.
Councillor Bailey.
Present.
Councillor Bulmer.
Present.
Deputy Clerk Hoytbot.
Yes, present.
PAO Glenn Schwendinger.
There you go. Present.
Director of Public Works, Mr. Fowler.
Present.
And Director of Finance, Mary Hassan.
Present.
Excellent. And we sounds like we have a little daughter that's joining us as well. So we'll start with disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Anybody have disclosure of pecuniary interest? None? All right, so we're going to start off with our finance department, and I'll ask our deputy clerk to read off our resolution, please.
Okay, so this is a little bit long, so just bear with me here. That report FIN 2020-013 regarding the draft community benefits charge regulations Bill 108 be received, and that council receives the correspondence from Watson and Associates dated March 18th, 2020, and the Municipal Finance Officers Association of Ontario dated March 30th, 2020, with respect to the proposed regulatory matters pertaining to Community Benefits Authority under the Planning Act, the Development Charges Act, and the Building Code Act attached to Schedule A and Schedule B to report FIN 2020-013 respectively, and that council supports the comments outlined in the correspondence from Watson and Associates and Municipal Finance Officers Association of Ontario attached to Schedule A and Schedule B to report FIN 2020-013 respectively, and that council supports a transition date of the later of 2 years after the date of the proposed regulation comes into effect or the expiration of the township's development charges bylaw, and that council supports a more fulsome consultation with the province on the following matters prior to the new regulation coming into effect: how the prescribed maximum community benefits charge payable percentages are adequate to ensure revenue neutrality for the wide array of diverse municipalities in Ontario, how land value is to be determined, i.e. fixed value for the entire township prepared by an independent third-party appraiser, or is it determined for each property with the cost borne by the property owner, whether the projects funded by development charges can continue to also be funded by cash in lieu of parkland funds raised in accordance with Section 42 and 51.1 of the Planning Act, whether Section 42(15) of the Planning Act will continue to provide the breadth of eligible services in which cash in lieu of parkland can be funded for, and that council supports the comments outlined in report FIN 2020-013, and that staff forward a copy of this resolution and report FIN 2020-013 to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Thank you, Ms. White Fox. Can we get a mover for that?
I'll move it.
Okay,
I'll
can we get a
second.
seconder? Thanks, Councillor Spoulos. Yeah, I'll call vote on that. So all in favor, Councillor Goyda. You're muted.
In favor.
Councillor Spoulos.
I'm in favor. I'd just like a clarification, if I may.
Well, you actually, I'll maybe not have the vote. Actually, I would prefer. Sorry, that's my my mistake. I'm going to have the Director of Finance just give us a quick synopsis of some of the impacts, maybe that a CBC charge venture for the Puslinch or versus, from what I understand, and then there was a lot to read there, and it was pretty complex. Is there's two opportunities: the CBC charge or just sticking with a flat fee. So, Director, if you wouldn't mind, would you be able to give us a Coles Note version of the impacts of these changes in legislation to the township?
Yes, so Bill 108, the proposed regulatory matters that have been provided by the province indicate that municipalities have the option of either developing a community benefits charge strategy and bylaw, or continuing to use the stipulations that were in place in the Planning Act that the township currently utilizes in the sections of the Planning Act, Section 42 and 51.1 of the Planning Act. And basically, we utilize those sections in our current cash in lieu of parkland bylaw. So again, the regulation does require more discussions, and I noted that from both MFOA and Watson and Associates comments on the regulation as well. And so there's still a lot of questions that still need to be answered, but it was a good first step by the province to provide municipalities with the option of either utilizing the Community Benefits Charge Authority or utilizing the current authority that we utilize in the Planning Act, sections 42 and 51.1, to collect cash in lieu of parkland.
Okay, thank you. I just want to follow up with you, Director. So my understanding is that if you were to go towards the new CBC charge, to me that seems like that's an avenue if you're looking to expand green spaces and it's a vehicle to provide funds to purchase lands, where if we stick with the current practice of receiving just a percentage, that would be more of maintaining what you have. Is that a fair statement?
So it is a fair statement that this Community Benefits Charge Authority for the township would be, for the most part, to acquire land. For other municipalities, it would involve other community services, but for the township, it would be to acquire land. But still, there are specific things that we need to gain reassurance from the province that aren't changing in the Planning Act as it relates to the breadth of services that we currently utilize cash in lieu of parkland for. But yes, you are correct that the CBC authority is to acquire land at this time based on the proposed wording in the regulation.
Okay, thank you. My last question would be, it appears, as you said, this is a first step. So, you know, it's not that the decision is imminent to decide on which avenue we want to go. We still have some opportunity, and we're commenting on both possibilities, is what I gathered from this report.
Yes, you are correct. There are questions in this report that have been raised to the province, both on the Community Benefits Charge Authority and the Planning Act Authority that we currently utilize for collecting cash in lieu of parkland.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll open up to council for questions. Councilor Goyda.
Thank you. I'm just curious, from our Director of Finance, from your point of view, what would the methodology be in order for us to evaluate the implications of doing one over the other, the CBC relative to maintaining the parkland dedication? Would we need to go through the CBC, the community benefits charge study either way in order to make that determination? And how long would you guess it would take to complete that sort of evaluation?
So the way that the regulation is currently drafted, it seems that a lot of the requirements that we currently require in our development charges study would be applicable for a community benefits charge strategy. And usually it takes about a year to complete such a study. Like in the past, since I've worked on these development charges studies with our consultants, it takes about a year because there is the public consultation process that also needs to be followed. And it seems that based on the current wording in the proposed regulation, there are appeal mechanisms as well. And so it's a lot of similar requirements that are required as part of our development charges background study. So it takes time.
Okay, so that being said, I know that our resolution is supporting sort of
I'm sorry, Jessica, you were cutting off.
Transition period. Can you hear me?
Now you're back. You might have to turn your video off to ask your questions, Jess.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
Okay, so I know that our current resolution is supporting an extended transition period. Do you think that that's enough? And do you think it would be valuable to include in the resolution the reasons as to why we're looking for that extended transition period, or do you think that the comments in the comments from Watson and Associates and the MFOA does a good enough job of addressing that?
So actually that transition date that's noted in the council resolution, it's based on the MFOA's recommendation in their documentation. And I believe that Watson and Associates and MFOA's documentation is pretty in-depth as to why we need more time to implement this, should we go about implementing a community benefits charge strategy.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, Councillor Spoulos?
Yes, it's just following up on Councillor Gorda's question. Do we need to do a CBC analysis before we decide to go either way, i.e. stay with the status quo or go for a community benefits charge?
Councillor Sapoulis, I think that would be prudent of us to work with an organization like Watson and Associates or Hempson Consultant and just basically tell them what our current circumstances are and what we currently do and what they recommend for us based on our growth forecasts and our official plan.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Councillor Bailey?
No, the Director of Finance answered clarification.
Councillor Bailey, I'm going to request that you turn your video off and restate your comments, please. It was a little broken. Oh, did we just lose her?
You can hear me?
Yes.
There's a Director of Finance answered a few of my clarifications, so I don't have any questions right now.
Thank you. Councillor Bowman?
Thank you. In the discussion regarding the difference between what the authority we have under the Planning Act and the potential authority under the CBC regarding parkland, it was my understanding that under the what we have currently under the Planning Act is the ability to either acquire land or cash in lieu. And so I just want to clarify that what you're talking about is that if we shift to the CBC, we will only have the ability to acquire land and not the cash in lieu, but we will still have the choice to do either under the.
So under the CBC authority, based on the current regulation and what it's indicating, I believe you would be able to collect cash in lieu under CBC authority, but I'm not sure about acquiring the land component, and I believe that's one of the comments that the MFOA incorporated in their document, whether the CBC would be applicable to also acquiring land.
Because I understand that when we're focusing on severances, it's the cash in lieu we need, or we don't want parkland. But when we're doing, if we do another plan of subdivision, it's often important for the residents that we acquire land in that subdivision instead of the cash in lieu. So I want to make sure we have that flexibility, whichever way we go in the future.
Yeah, so I believe that the question that you're raising was actually one of the items that the MFOA included in their correspondence.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowman. I need a little bit of clarification from the director. Typically, we have cash in lieu of parkland, and then there's stipulations of where that money can be spent on. So it had to be in parks, on park infrastructure. I don't know the exact list. And it appeared to me that that component was being changed and it was being moved more to a development charge, where then, was the ask from the MOFA that this cash in lieu of parkland would be allowed to be used with DCs to fund other infrastructure? Was that one of the asks the MOFA was asking for?
I think the question that Watson and Associates raised, which is a very valid question, and it's aligned with what I believe you're asking, Mayor Sealy, is that whether with these changes in this new proposed regulation, whether we would still be able to utilize cash in lieu of parkland for those breadths of eligible services that we're currently able to utilize it for. So for like maintaining some of our recreational facilities, for example.
Right, so, okay, I just wanted, it wasn't very clear to me if they were delisting some of those services or not, but, because for me, I'll just tell you, my priority is if we're collecting money from developers for parklands, the money needs to go to the parklands. I don't want it to be allotted to, you know, DCs that fund, say, you know, I don't know, paving a road out on, you know, whatever concession. So as long as that stays, that's important that stays intact for me, is that if it's parkland money, it stays in our park system, the recreation system. So that's just my comments. Do we have any further comments from the councilors? No? Okay. So I'm going to call this for a vote. So Councillor Goyda,
In favor.
Councillor Spoulos,
In favor?
Councillor Bailey,
In favor?
Councillor Bulmer,
In favor?
and I'm in favor as well. Well, you have that recorded, Deputy Clerk White Fox.
Yes,
And
I do.
And when you're ready, you can read our second resolution, please.
Okay, that report FIN 2020-014 regarding property tax relief related to COVID-19 be received, and that the 2020 interim tax levy bylaw number 001-2020 be amended such that penalties and interest on the 2020 unpaid taxes are not imposed on May 1st, 2020 and June 1st, 2020. And that council authorize the Director of Finance, Treasurer, to waive non-sufficient fund fees of $40 as a financial relief measure due to COVID-19.
Can I get a mover for that?
I'll move.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Bulmer.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll open it up for discussion. Councillor Goyda.
Thank you. No, I think that this report very, very clearly outlines what the township is looking to do, and hopefully create a little bit of relief for the many, many people who are being impacted financially through this crisis. And I know that it's probably going to cause a little bit of cash flow concern for the township and possibly our budget, but I think it's an important measure that we just have to do to give some relief. So I'm in full support.
Thank you. Councillor Spoulos.
Yes, I was wondering if the CAO or finance people can comment with respect to the issue that we have, possibly a concern about cash flow, and also with respect to the county levies being paid on time.
Councillor Sapoulis, I could speak to that. So on a weekly basis, we are meeting countywide, the county and its lower tier municipalities, just to discuss the cash flow options as we move forward. We are so early in this pandemic stage, so it is at this time difficult to determine what the constraints will be or how long this will go on for. However, we are having these weekly discussions, and it is definitely on the radar to look into that. Also, just to let everyone know that we will be bringing forward a temporary borrowing bylaw for our next council meeting to address any cash flow constraints should we have any. This is something that we do annually, and we will continue to do it this year as well. But it is definitely something that all of the countywide municipalities are discussing.
Thank you.
I could add a couple of comments as well. The treasurers have also committed to, as they're watching this, they're doing some modeling to plan out the different types of scenarios as to what may or may not take place and what the impacts are going to be. It's going to take them a bit of time. They'd suggested maybe up to 2 months to do the complete analysis, but during that time, they're going to be watching, as Mary indicated, they're going to be watching everything quite closely and letting us know if there are any cash flow issues. One other thing that we're doing internally within the municipality is the corporate work plan, the document that we were working on before the pandemic hit, was basically one summary document to show all the different projects that were approved under the various programs and under the various budgets as to what was going to be going ahead and what the approximate time frame was going to be. All the department heads are currently in the process of reviewing that work plan now to see which projects still need to go ahead because they're urgent priorities. They have some regulation to comply with to complete, or funding requirements that we haven't had confirmed could be extended, anything like that. A number of them will be deferred because they're not on the essential list, and a number of them are just simply going to be deferred because we don't have the resources to do it with everybody working at home and the limited functionality that we have at this point. Once we have that revised list of projects, that's actually a report that we intend to bring to council on the 22nd. Once we have that revised list, our Director of Finance is going to be taking a look at that to see which projects are recommended to be moved out and how that's going to be helping the cash flow situation as well. So this is very much a moving target, but we are closely monitoring it. It's a key issue for us as staff, and we're watching it. And any prior to any major crisis happening, or if we see things are moving in the direction of becoming a problem, we're definitely going to be bringing something to council for your information.
Thank you.
Councillor Bailey.
I think it's great to be able to offer a few sort of relief measures at this time to those that might need it. I did have one question, maybe hoping to be more positive. The school board property tax levy remittance that's been moved to December. I'm just trying to find it here. September, moving to December. If the situation presents itself where we're in a place to pay it, say in November, is that an option to do? And I'm just wondering about the impact of the double payment in December.
Councillor Bailey, sorry, can you just repeat the end of your question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering about if the situation presents itself where we're able to pay the December 30th in, say, November, is that an option?
It is an option. We could pay early, but it all depends on how we're doing. So that's something that we will continue to analyze, and perhaps we'll just take advantage of the new deadlines that the province has provided, given that cash flow may be a little bit tighter this year just because of the COVID-19 situation.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bulmer.
Thank you. Just a question for the Director of Finance regarding people who wish to pay their taxes and choose to pay by check. Some of our residents are accustomed to going to the bank and paying at the teller, and then they get their invoice stamped, or they get some sort of confirmation that they have made their payments and fulfilled their obligation. Is there any opportunity for someone who slides a check through the mail slot at the township office to request confirmation of receipt of that by the township, either by mail or by phone? I guess they'd like something in writing typically, so something by phone or by mail or by email. Is that possible?
So Councillor, oh, sorry.
I'll just speak to this quickly, and then Mary can fill in details. At this point, what we're trying to do, based on the direction we've been given, is to minimize the amount of staff time in the office for potential exposure. A lot of the check processing is done automatically, and the director can speak more to that. But at this point, we don't have that process in place, because that would involve dedicating more staff within the office.
But for sure, Councillor Bulmer, if there are residents who want confirmation that their tax payment has been received, they can call the township office, and we could send email correspondence to them, or just give them that confirmation via telephone. Okay,
and so it would be best if they included that when they they drop the check through the door in an envelope, include a little note in the envelope that they would like to receive some form of confirmation then?
They could leave it in the envelope, or they could just call afterwards if they are concerned that their check hasn't been processed.
Okay, thank you.
Glenn, can we do that if we get 3 people that pay with a check, just track it and then, you know, maybe via phone call and then confirmation that we'll send out a letter once, you know, staff is operating back inside the municipal office. If that's, you know, Councillor Bulmer, I don't suspect it's going to be a large amount of people, you know, it might be 5 or 6, something like that, our old school plus some people. So
Yeah, well, we'll do whatever we can. A lot of the customer service processes that we have set up, it's not stuff that we anticipated in advance. We're kind of figuring it out as we go. We will keep a close eye on these. And yeah, if it's a small quantity number, that shouldn't be a real big issue. But it would be helpful if someone does have that specific request, just to, like the director said, leave a note or call in, and then we can do that. But yeah, we'll do what we can to accommodate people's requests.
thank you, that's wonderful.
Thank you so much.
So I just want to talk a little bit about the conversations being had about this tax relief. Since we've declared the state of emergency, and even maybe a little prior to that, you know, the county conference calls, the directors and the mayors, we've been discussing these relief measures, and this is an initial offering for tax relief. It comes up often, and as the director of finance mentioned, they're having weekly meetings and anticipating, you know, maybe some more relief in the future. We don't know where this is going, but I just wanted to reassure you that it's a conversation that's happening regularly, and we're aware that we have to be adaptive, and there is a real possibility that more measures may have to come down later in the year. You know, I've been saying right from the beginning that the first and second installment, I think people would have had the money saved up and ready to pay their taxes. It's the third and fourth that I think we're really going to see people needing assistance. But if we can get back to work, which that's another conversation, but with this COVID-19, but that's where we're really going to have to, you know, maybe do some relief. But right now, you know, directors of finance, treasurers are on it. The mayors are concerned about it. They bring it up. We get updates. And as the CEO mentioned, Ken DeHart figures a couple months to maybe come up with some suggestions. So I'll do my best to keep you informed of the discussions weekly. And if you're feeling that you're maybe not getting enough information, just remind me. Just give me a call, give me an email. And because, you know, I got a lot of things going on, I just don't want to forget it. And I know it's important to everyone. So if there's any other further questions, then I'll call for a vote. None, so all in favor, Councillor Goyda?
In favor.
Councillor Spose?
In favor.
Councillor Bailey?
In favor?
Councillor Bulmer?
In favor?
And I'm in favor as well. Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll move on to mayor's updates. I'll just grab my notes here real quick. So I believe you may know Green Legacy is going to be canceled. What they're doing is they're having staff deliver the pre-orders from was it fall? Maybe Councilor supposed to correct me, I believe, Councilor last fall, to the residents because they want their trees. A lot of these young, are they saplings or whatever the terminology is, are bare root. So the county wants to get them in the ground. They want to get them to the people. And from my understanding is, you know, the next 3 to 4 weeks, staff's going to be delivering these pre-orders. And then there will be an offering online for people to order the remainder of the trees. So now I'm not sure, maybe our CAO can clarify, but I believe then those orders would be delivered as well. So that'll be up to us to maybe get the information out once it goes live. I didn't hear anything about it today on our conference call, but once it goes live, let's try and get the word out so these trees don't get wasted and we get them in the ground somewhere. But that's up for so Green Legacy. We have the MTO meeting coming up on April 21st, I believe, and scheduled for 2 hours. So haven't heard anything more. I'm optimistic about it. I'm excited. And, you know, the duration being 2 hours is very intriguing. So let's keep your fingers crossed. We have some good news coming on the 21st. As I think we through some emails, you knew that we had the MECP and the MMAH meeting. It went really well. They're trying to work for us. I already discussed this with council. But also after the council meeting, Aldo Salas emailed me, and he made an interesting statement about going through the MCR and identifying puss lynch as being abnormal in the sense that we could come up with some more preferential planning options for puss lynch, is the way I read into it, and it was very rewarding, and it was a breath of fresh air to hear that. However, he did say that it would have to go through the MCR process. So I'm very optimistic and enthusiastic about it. I think that's some good news in a time where everything's all about COVID. So hopefully there's some good growth that we could have in puss lynch and take the burden off the existing taxpayers. As you know, we, as the county, did the Keep Well program. It was an initial offering of $1 million to local businesses to help them get them through. The intention of the Keep Well was a short-term time frame, so get that cash to them right away. We heard this morning that there were 58 applicants, 24 approved in Wellington County, and I believe another 10 additional in this under the Saugeen jurisdiction, but they're in Wellington County, Saugeen Community Futures. And the number being bounced around is approximately 500,000 is spoken for. So there's still some room left over for additional applicants. Well, I mean, they still have other applicants they're processing. I've been in contact with a local business that through social media, I had read that township wasn't doing anything for them and the landlord isn't doing anything for them but I had been in contact with them prior to that happening, and I connected them with Rick from Community Futures to assist them in completing their application if need be. I don't know everybody's financial details, nor do I need to, but I want to make sure that if they need this money, that our businesses from puss lynch can get their applications in, whether you're computer savvy or not. I'll hand deliver it. So as far last I heard, they're still working with Rick to get their application in, so that's good news. And that's it for my mayoral update, unless Glenn wants to add anything from the county call that maybe I missed.
Nope, nothing to add.
Okay. All right. So, any municipal announcements? No. Councillor Spillis?
Just a one. Our internet group has been meeting quite often, every 2 weeks, and we started up a Facebook page, Puss Lynch High Speed, so you're welcome to join. And we're working on putting a survey together for residents, just during this crisis, just to get a feel for what's happening out there. So that'll be available on my Facebook page.
You were a little garbled in the beginning, Councillor Spillis, but I don't know if for the public record, and I know it's about the high-speed internet, but maybe you just want to repeat that.
Yeah, our internet committee has undertaken to set up a Facebook page, Puss Lynch High Speed, and we're inviting people to join, and we plan to have a survey that the residents can fill out, sort of a quick and dirty 1 to 2 minute survey to gauge the public reaction during this COVID crisis, what their service is like.
Excellent. Thank you for doing that, Councillor Spillis. Any other municipal announcements? No? Okay. Any unfinished business? See none? Okay, bylaws. Ms. Whitefox, are you prepared to read the bylaw, please?
Yes, that the following bylaw be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 2020-020, a bylaw to amend the 2020 interim tax levy bylaw number 001-2020.
Okay, do I need a mover for that? Mover.
I can move.
Okay, thank you. Seconder.
I can second.
Thank you, Councillor Goida. All in favor, so I'll go Councillor Goida,
In favor.
Councillor Willis,
In favor?
Councillor Bailey.
In favor?
Thank you, Councillor Ballmer,
In favor?
and I'm in favor as well. Thank you. And Ms. White Fox, would you mind reading the confirming bylaw, please?
That the following bylaw be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 2020-021, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council for the corporation of the Township of Puslinch at its meeting held on the 8th day of April 2020.
Okay, can I move her for that one? Councillor Bailey,
I'll
I'll
move it.
second.
and second by Councillor Ballmer. Thank you. All in favor, Councillor Goida,
In favor.
Councillor Willis,
In favor?
Councillor Bailey,
In favor?
Councillor Ballmer.
In favor?
I'm in favor as well. Thank you. And then Ms. White Fox, if you don't mind reading the adjournment. Do we need a mover and seconder for adjournment, or can I just choose the time?
We need a mover and seconder.
Okay. Don't want to read it, please.
That council hereby adjourns at 2:53 p.m.
Okay.
I'll move that.
Thank you, Councillor Ballmer. Second, Councillor Spillis, all in favor. Councillor Goida,
In favor.
Councillor Spillis,
In favor?
Councillor Bailey,
In favor?
Councillor Ballmer.
In favor?
All right, I'm in favor as well. We are hereby adjourned from our second virtual council meeting. It was nice seeing everyone. I look forward to getting back in the council chambers with everyone.